We've all heard them. The stories told in hushed tones at sleepovers to keep the younger kids awake. The warnings from a friend about why you should never flash your headlights at a dark car on a deserted highway. We call them urban legends, modern folklore designed to keep us looking over our shoulders. For most of us, there is a certain comfort in the legend part of the name. It implies a fiction, a safety net. We tell ourselves that these stories are just a way for the human brain to process the chaos of the world. But what happens when the campfire story stops being a metaphor? What happens when the monster under the bed actually has a name, a face, and a police record? Today, we are stripping away the myth and looking at the cold, hard evidence. From bodies hidden in plain sight to real-life boogeymen who walked among us, these are the top, scariest urban legends that turned out to be 100% true. Grab a seat, lock your doors, and let's dive into the dark archives of history. 1. The corpse under the bed. It is the quintessential travel nightmare. You check into a budget motel after a long day on the road. The room looks clean enough, but there is a faint, sickly sweet smell clinging to the air. You call the front desk. They apologize and send someone up with a can of industrial air freshener. But as the night goes on, the floral scent fades and the rot returns. You eventually realize the smell isn't coming from the vents or the carpet. It's coming from inside the bed frame. In the world of urban legends, this is the body in the bed story. For decades, it was dismissed as a gruesome joke told to scare tourists, but the reality is far more frequent and far more disturbing. In 1999, at the Capri Motel in Atlantic City, a guest slept on a bed for several nights despite a persistent, foul odor. When housekeeping finally investigated, they found the body of Saul Hernandez tucked inside the box spring. But that's just one instance. Similar discoveries have been made in Florida, California, and Las Vegas. In 2010, a man in Memphis slept on a mattress for 6 weeks before the body of Sony Millbrook was found underneath him. It turns out that a hollowed-out box spring is a tragically common place for criminals to hide evidence. The next time you check into a hotel, you might want to look under the mattress before you get comfortable. 2. The collector of dolls. Every neighborhood has one. The eccentric recluse who stays inside, avoids eye contact, and has a home filled with strange trinkets. In some versions of this legend, the neighbor is so lonely that they create life-size dolls to keep them company, dressing them up and talking to them as if they were alive. In 2011, authorities in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, realized this wasn't just a spooky story. They entered the apartment of Anatoly Moskvin, a brilliant historian and linguist who spoke 13 languages. What they found was a literal house of horrors. Moskvin didn't just make dolls, he was a grave robber. He had exhumed the bodies of over 25 girls and young women, some as young as 3 years old. He would mummify the remains using baking soda and salt, then wrap them in fabric and padding to create human-sized dolls. He applied makeup to their faces, put wigs on their heads, and even placed music boxes inside their chest cavities so they would sing when he touched them. He threw birthday parties for them and treated them like his daughters. The dolls on his shelves were real people who had once been loved and mourned. 3. Charlie No Face, the Green Man. Throughout the 1950s and 60s in western Pennsylvania, teenagers practiced a rite of passage called green man hunting. The legend spoke of a radioactive monster with glowing green skin and a melted face who haunted the tunnels of Route 351. If you caught a glimpse of him, he might chase your car or disappear into the woods. The terrifying reality is that the Green Man was a very real, very human man named Raymond Robinson. When Ray was just 9 years old, he was horribly injured by a high-voltage wire while trying to reach a bird's nest. He survived the shock, but at a terrible cost. He lost his eyes, his nose, and one of his arms. His skin was severely scarred, often appearing pale or even greenish under certain artificial lights. Ray was a gentle, kind soul who spent his days making belts and wallets to support himself. However, because of the cruelty of strangers, he only felt safe walking outside under the cover of darkness. The monster the teenagers were hunting was simply a lonely man trying to get some fresh air without being ridiculed. The legend was real, but the monster was the society that turned a victim into a ghost story. 4. The Madgasser of Mattoon. In September 1944, the small town of Mattoon, Illinois, was gripped by a strange hysteria. Reports began flooding the police station of a shadowy figure lurking outside bedroom windows. This prowler would spray a sweet-smelling gas into the home, causing the occupants to suffer from nausea, paralysis, and swelling of the throat. While many historians now point to mass psychogenic illness, or mass hysteria, there were physical clues that suggested something more sinister. On September 1st, a woman named Mrs. Kearney reported a sickeningly sweet odor that made her legs go numb. Her husband then spotted a tall figure in dark clothing retreating from their window. Over the next 2 weeks, dozens of identical reports were filed. While a mad scientist was never apprehended, the terror was palpable. Some modern researchers suggest it may have been localized industrial pollution, while others believe a real stalker was using chemical agents to incapacitate victims before a planned robbery. To this day, the identity of the gasser remains a mystery, but the terror he or it inflicted on the town was very real. 5. The real-life Candyman. Every Halloween, parents repeat the same mantra: check your candy for needles or poison. We are taught from a young age that there are malicious strangers out there who want to harm children for no reason. For a long time, this was considered a moral panic with no basis in fact. That changed in 1974. The legend became reality through the actions of Ronald Clark O'Brien, a man who would forever be known as the Candyman. On Halloween night in Deer Park, Texas, O'Brien gave out giant pixie sticks laced with potassium cyanide to 5 children, including his own son and daughter. His 8-year-old son, Timothy, ate the candy and died within minutes. It was later discovered that O'Brien was in deep financial debt and had taken out massive life insurance policies on his children. He had attempted to use the poisoned candy urban legend as a cover for his own horrific crime, hoping the police would blame a random neighborhood boogeyman. He was eventually caught and executed, but his actions solidified a fear that still haunts parents every October 31st. 6. The buried alive prematurely. The fear of being buried alive, taphophobia, was so prevalent in the 18th and 19th centuries that it inspired a whole industry of safety coffins. These devices featured bells attached to the surface by a string, allowing a corpse to signal for help if they woke up 6 feet under. Before the advent of modern stethoscopes and brain scans, determining death was often a guessing game. Comas or conditions like catalepsy could make a person appear cold, stiff, and breathless. In 1867, a young girl named Eleanor Markham was pronounced dead in France. As her coffin was being carried toward the grave, a mourner heard a faint scratching sound, and when they pried the lid open, Eleanor was found alive and terrified. Even more chilling are the reports from the 1800s when cemeteries were moved. When workers opened old coffins to relocate the remains, they frequently found scratch marks on the inside of the lids and skeletons with their fingers worn down to the bone. This wasn't just a gothic horror trope, it was a terrifying reality of the Victorian era. 7. The elevator to nowhere, Elisa Lam. In the digital age, a new legend emerged: the elevator game. It's a ritual where, by pressing buttons in a specific order, you can travel to another dimension. This legend was catapulted into the mainstream following the tragic and baffling case of Elisa Lam at the Cecil Hotel in 2013. The CCTV footage from that night is etched into the internet's memory. It shows Elisa acting in a way that defies simple explanation, pushing multiple buttons, stepping in and out of the elevator, hiding in corners, and gesturing to someone in the hallway who isn't there. The elevator doors refuse to close while she's inside. Weeks later, guests complained about black, foul-smelling water with a strange taste. When maintenance workers checked the water tanks on the roof, they found Elisa's body. While the official cause of death was accidental drowning related to her bipolar disorder, the haunting visual of the haunted elevator remains a chilling bridge between modern myth and a very real tragedy. Urban legends are more than just scary stories. They are the cautionary tales of the modern world. They warn us about the dangers of the dark, the unpredictability of strangers, and the fallibility of our own systems. Most of the time, we can turn off the video or close the book and remind ourselves that it isn't real. But as we've seen today, the line between folklore and fact is thinner than we'd like to believe. Sometimes the hook-handed man is just a metaphor for our fear of the unknown. But sometimes there really is someone under the bed. There really is a man in the shadows. And there really are bells ringing in the graveyard. What is the scariest urban legend you've ever heard? And after today, do you still think it's just a story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, especially if you have a story of your own that sounds too strange to be true. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the dark side of history, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more explorations into the unexplained. And remember, the next time you hear a strange sound in the attic or smell something off in a hotel room, don't just ignore it, because sometimes the legend is looking right back at you. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and above all, stay safe.